Oh, nice.
Where is it? You got it in the car?
Working as an English teacher in the fall, so
Yay.
when I'm not working here, yeah, I'll be working there. And before we get into the cave, there are a couple ground rules that I want y'all to be aware of, just to make sure that your experience today is as pleasant as it can be. So our number one rule for the day is do not touch the cave. And that's because the cave is actually really delicate and we want to leave it exactly how we found it today. Our number two rule of the cave is you want to keep your flash off. So if you have a phone or you have a camera and you want to take pictures, you're more than welcome to take as many pictures as you want. Just keep that flash off. And that's to prevent the light from getting into anyone's eyes. I think that same rule applies to flashlights. Please just use those for safety purposes. Just because we have a lot of people that like to shine their light in other people's eyes, and it can actually mess up your night vision because it is fairly dark in there, and we want to make sure that everyone can see the cave today. And then our number three rule of the day, there's lots of rules. We have 3 whole rules. Our number 3 rule of the day today is keep your voices down. And that's because we have bats that live here in the cave, and they're nocturnal creatures, which means they sleep during the day. And we want to respect their sleep by keeping our voices down. Okay, number 1, hands to yourselves. Number 2, keep your flash photography off. And then number 3, voices down. All right, now that I have those rules out of the way, I can get into the history of the cave. So Crystal Cave has been and has continued to be used for hundreds of years by the local indigenous peoples of this area. The Yokut people have been using the cave dating all the way back to the 1600s. That's the earliest evidence we have, but they've probably been using it for even longer. It's considered to be a sacred space for them. It's a place to hold ceremonies, and it's sacred, it's spiritual. And then in 1918, it was rediscovered, the cave, by 2 men by the names of Webster and Medley. And I say rediscovered because the cave was already discovered and has been used by people for hundreds of years. And that rediscovery was done by the National Park Service. Webster and Medley were 2 off-duty National Park Service employees who were out fishing Cascade Creek when they felt a cool breeze. And they were fishing for trout that day, and they didn't find any trout, but they did find a cave. And they first named it Hidden Cave because y'all probably noticed it was a bit unexpected as you were hiking down. It's just all of a sudden there's a huge entrance. And it was also hidden behind some more brushes and trees whenever this pathway wasn't here. And then a couple days later, after they named it Hidden Cave, the park superintendent, Wally Fry, he came to see the cave. And he renamed it Crystal Cave. And y'all are about to find out why. So if y'all have any questions during the tour, feel free to say my name, hey Cora. I'm more than happy to answer questions that way or raise your hand. And I'll get to them as soon as possible. And if I have any kiddos in the group, it looks like we have one, which is great. If you want to help me open the gate, it's 300 pounds, so I usually need help opening it. Yeah, and then whenever the gate is open,
Has the water always been here? Is that something like the park rangers want to trade it?
Yeah, no, the water's always in here. It actually comes from seasonal snow. So it fluctuates a little bit depending on the seasons. The Sequoia Conservation Corps, they did reroute the creek just a little bit because in one section they need to
Yeah.
And this is about the lowest it gets, and then during the winter time it gets about 2 feet.
Wow. 2 feet higher.
Yeah. And people are always wondering if it floods in the cave, and the answer is no. Just because the snowmelt, there's a small entrance that the snowmelt can flow through, and honestly, it's not big enough to allow for flooding.
Okay, so it like bottlenecks it.
Yeah. And I just like to stop here to show people. I'm not gonna talk about it, but it's a pretty place to take pictures. And these right here, these are called brimstone dams.
Say again, Cora, with their what? Brimstone?
Brimstone dams?
Dams, okay.
Yeah, I always remember it because it rhymes with fire and brimstone.
Oh,
Brimstone dams.
really neat.
And during the winter time, these are pools, so they're full of water. And there's a section where you'll see the fairy pools, which are also brimstone dams. They're just the wet version of them, and they're really pretty. And then we're just gonna move on to our next room. Yeah, this is one of the coolest parts of the cave because Crystal Cave always tries to stay in equilibrium like 51 degrees. So the warmer it is outside, more cold air gets pushed out of the cave. According to an older gentleman a couple weeks ago, there used to be blind fish here in the cave because he's gone here multiple times throughout his life. We don't have the blind fish here anymore, and it's dubious if they ever existed. That's just relying on this one visitor we had. But we do have a lot of insects that live in here. There are 2 critters that live in the water. Not too many animals are adapted to survive in here. So we have spiders, an insect called springtails, cave-adapted millipedes, bats, and not too much else. And other things, though, they have cave fish. They have translucent fish in our creeks and stuff. It just depends on what biome you're in, the nature of the creeks. And this is our first stop of the day, so feel free to gather around and find a spot where you can see the you're worried about not seeing most of the past, the trail does go over the
You ever think you'd be walking around that real cave?
And it's not built by Disney.
Yeah, 100%.
yeah. If you're short, yeah, it's great. I don't have to go through the thing.
This is the first I've stood straight.
Yeah, games are pretty squeezy. It's not always the easiest to get through.
A lot of people coming here. Let's go down here.
Majority of this cave is like that. It's tight squeezy as always. Most of the cave is actually above us, so you can't access this section without 5 minutes crawling. But this section is almost miraculously walkable because most of the caves in the park aren't so big with such large passageways. So it's pretty unusual for a crystal cave to be this size. Does everyone see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit. I don't really see it too much. I see more of a pipe organ right here. Also, my jokes are really bad, so feel free to laugh at them, but if it's simply unfunny, I'll scratch it. Yeah, pity laughs. Alright. It wasn't until 1940 that they opened it up for the public to come and see the cave. And that's because Wally Fry, that superintendent I was telling y'all about earlier, he knew immediately when he walked into this cave that this was a place that should be preserved for future generations. He didn't want anyone coming in here and vandalizing or doing that sort of thing. So there was actually a wooden barricade put in the entrance for those 20 years. And then once they received the resources to open up this cave and develop it, the name of the Civilian Conservation Corps came to the cave. And that was in 1938, 1939. This was during the Great Depression, a time of great poverty in the U.S. And the president of the time, Franklin D. Roosevelt, he wanted to provide work for young men so that they could provide for their families. And the Civilian Conservation Corps, they did a lot of work within
Wow.
There's multiple entrances in here. And that's just about different spots. But that's our favorite one just because it's the largest space. So we're trying to go in the right direction rather than trying Alright, and believe it or not, the view is better from the top. So if you see a gap, feel free to fill it out so that the people in the back can see this room as well. Dome room because of this formation right here. That then in the 1920s, that looked like the Capitol Dome. I see a bit more of a Star Wars influence in this. Yeah, I see Jabba the Hutt right here. I also see the Steakhouse Man from Ghostbusters as well. And if you look to the left, you can also see his gorilla companion.
Yeah.
Maybe King Kong, perchance. And if you all do a 180, I know it's bad. If you turn around, you can see this beautiful cave dragon here as well. If you don't see it, its crocodile head is right
Oh,
here.
yeah, this is the head.
Its colossal chin. And then its wings extending all the way back here. And what I love about this dragon is it's completely natural. No man went in there and chiseled the rock. That's just how the river flowed and created this passageway we're standing in today. And whenever the water in that carbonic acid first cuts through the rock and creates these rooms, that's called a primary formation. We call it a secondary formation whenever that initial passageway dries up, and then the water starts dripping and flowing through cracks in the ceiling or the sides, and creating what are called the decorations, or those secondary formations of the cave. Infant stages, they're called soda straws, because they're actually hollow inside. They're about the diameter of the water droplet, and they're created by water droplets continuously dropping in the same spot over and over again. What happens is there's a crystal called calcite in the marble, and that carbonic acid I was telling you about earlier dissolves the calcite out of the rock up above, and then actually deposits it with each water droplet. And it will keep on depositing calcite in rings over and over again, making that tube longer, until it eventually clogs up with calcite. And then as the water drips along the sides and along the edge, it will get a bit thicker and pointier, like some of these carrot-like formations to the left. And can anyone guess how old these soda straws are?
Hundreds.
100 years. Hundreds. Yeah, those are great guesses. These actually grew at a rate of 1 inch every 100 years. And that's if they're growing really fast, like this one on the left here. Some of them that cling on to their water droplets might only be growing at a rate of 1 inch every 100 or 200, possibly possibly up to 400 years. So some of these are hundreds to thousands of years old. And if you can imagine, the cave itself is actually over 1 million years old. And think about that in comparison to your lifespan. We're gonna go through a tight squeezy spot up here. Then
Watch your head, bro. Yeah. For you.
For you too.
I'm good.
It's tight for everybody.
Oh my God.
I'll be in the Valencia region, and I'm waiting for my assignment for what town I'll be in. Yeah, have you spent a lot of time in Spain?
You just done it.
All right, welcome in everyone to our marble hall. This is our biggest room in the cave, and it's also our oldest room in the cave. And that goes hand in hand. So it means they can climb in a big group through that gate. But most of the other exits to this cave are up above us as well. And there's even another cave above us called Bear Dam Cave. That's not entirely connected to Crystal Cave. Yeah, of course. And it's pretty crazy at all that we have such big passageways, because most of the caves here in Sierra Nevada are tight crawl spaces, or they're pits in the ground. So to have such huge, but for the most part, it's actually kind of slightly looking like if you look to the left over here, we have some great examples of some more secondary formations. This right here is an angel wing, and then behind it is some more of that blue bacon. And that's still that crystal called calcite. It just doesn't look as sparkly as it does in some of those other formations. But there's plenty of crystals above us as well. And they're probably in better condition, just because people don't go visit those rooms often. Next month. And I'm super excited for that. We probably will get to see the more secluded passageways of the cave. The only reason they're not here on the tour today is because it actually takes about 8 hours to travel through, because it's crawling through the caves rather than walking through it. And they're also really sensitive, so they have a lot of research that goes on in those upper cave rooms. And there's a room called the phosphorescent room that actually glows in the dark. And I'm super excited to see that, but it's pretty limited who can see it.
stalactogethers.
Thank you. I'm adding it to my
Stalactogethers is great. I think I was the only one that laughed.
That's so
It wasn't
funny.
listening with you.
I know sometimes you will just totally go
No,
understand.
dude, it's 50 degrees and you're gonna want it. If you understand my message, you take it off.